So I was watching quite an interesting Rudy video the other day, and he was talking about the differences between Pokemon and Magic, and why Pokemon is just the king of all kings in terms of powerhouse TCGs. Magic is still a powerhouse, but it hasn't quite reached that level that Pokemon has. So I thought that's what we were going to talk about today. A little bit of an interesting topic, and we're going to kind of explore Pokemon and maybe a little bit Magic as well. But you know, Rudy doesn't quite understand the Pokemon market. He's never really been into Pokemon as a fan, and I think that's the reason why he quite doesn't understand why Pokemon is such a massive powerhouse. Now, Pokemon is a massive powerhouse not just because of the cards, but it releases video games on the Switch and Nintendo DS and all of those consoles over the years. You've got loads of merch, whether it be clothes, toys, bed duvets, pillowcases, Yakult drinks, Oreos, whatever it might be. There's always Pokemon merch, always in the back of people's minds, always telling people that Pokemon's there, Pokemon's still there. And everybody knows what Pokemon is, There's TV, cartoon animes, there's movies that have come out. And, I guarantee if I showed my dad a picture of Pikachu, he'd say, that's Pikachu. I know exactly who that is. And the problem with Magic is that Magic doesn't have that familiarity. I mean, a lot of people might remember it from the early 90s and even the early 2000s. But I think over the last sort of 10, 15 years, there hasn't really been any new kind of new blood entering into Magic the Gathering. And I think that's a major, major problem actually for Magic. Now, they've tried to spice things up with, trying to throw new stuff in like Transformers and Doctor Who and all this kind of other weird stuff. But I don't really think it fits the Magic ethos as a whole. But I mean, with Pokemon, the main thing about Pokemon is that you can collect, if you want to get into base set Pokemon, you can still collect a Charizard, and a Charizard is still relevant today. He was relevant 10 years ago. He will be relevant in 10 years to come as well. If you want to collect, prismatic evolutions, there's a whole set of EVs. Oh look, this is the first set of Pokemon I've ever collected. I really like EVs. Let me go back 25 years to see what sort of EV cards there are out there. Oh look, I can go all the way back to, was it Jungle, the first one for EV? And you've got an entire plethora of cards of all different price points of that you can go back and collect. Now, I think that's the main problem with Magic. There's no familiarity with it. There are some recurring characters. You've got your Planeswalkers and people like Chainer and Liliana, I think her name is. But that's kind of my point, right? That nobody really remembers these characters. They're not familiar. Every single set is different. It has a different theme, whether it be vampires, whether it be like artifacty, kind of like mechy stuff. What else have they had recently? Like Harry Pottery, wizardy stuff. And the only time that Magic has actually set the world on fire was when it released a Lord of the Rings set. Now, did people go mad for it because it was Magic? I don't think they did. I think people went mad for it because it was Lord of the Rings. And I think that is kind of the issue, right? There isn't any real interest in the Magic IP itself. No one cares about the characters. The beasts are different literally every single time. And with Pokemon, you know exactly what you're getting in every single set. You know you're going to get Pokemon that you recognise or you don't recognise. And that alone will decide whether you want to collect the set or whether you don't. Prismatic Evolutions, the most recent set out, is super, super hot. Purely because it just has evolutions in it. It's got the Umbreon, it's got all of the evolutions. I'm not going to go through them, but it has all the evolutions in it. Very, very popular Pokemon, and that's why that set is super, super hot. If you go back to Surging Sparks, that set is super, super hot because it has a very hard to chase Pikachu in it. Pikachu, the most popular character in Pokemon. If you go back the set before that, was it Shrouded Fable? No one knew any of the Pokemon in there, apart from the Greninja in the Greninja EX box, which everybody sort of swarmed on. But other than that, no one likes the Pokemon in the set. No one bought the set. The set is currently the only thing that's currently below MSRP in the Pokemon world. So that goes to explain a lot. But yeah, Pokemon's got games, it's got merch, it's got cards, TV, film. It's flooding everybody's living rooms, everybody's household. It's a household name, whereas Magic quite isn't there yet. The game itself, a lot of people put a lot of focus into a lot of people that buy Magic put a lot of focus into Magic the game. That is their main focus. I don't think they're necessarily really collecting it. There probably are people out there that are collecting it, but I personally don't see Magic as collectible. It's not something you're going to go out there and try and get a master set of. It's not something that you're going to go out there and try and collect, one of every card of or anything like that. I think most people collect some of the rarer stuff, like if there's serialized cards in there and stuff like that. That's the sort of stuff that people will try to chase, but they will chase them purely because they're serialized, not because they're particularly a card or a subject that people are really interested in. But kids love Pokemon, and they always will love Pokemon, especially over the last 5 years. I've seen personally a huge influx of kids getting into Pokemon, going around the card shows, picking up cards, asking to do trade up challenges, and can you barter in as well, even, oh, would you do this card for £3 instead of £5, or whatever. But there's a lot of kids getting into that, whereas with Magic, I don't see anybody asking for Magic at these shows. I don't see any kids really getting into Magic. I think overall Magic's probably age range is probably, I would guess, 30 plus. There may be a 1 to 5% of like 20 and below, but I personally think that Magic is a very aging fan base. There isn't really anybody new getting into it. Over the last 5 years, we've had Pokemon absolutely explode. Loads of kids have got into it, and when those kids grow up in 25 years time, hopefully those will have kids and they'll want to introduce it to their children as well. Magic doesn't seem like it's going to get there. People that are getting into new Magic, do they really care about the very first set of Magic that came out? Do they care about 5th edition? Do they care about Torment, Odyssey? No, they don't care about these sets. You can't use them you can't use the cards in the game anymore. There isn't any characters in there that they're going to think are cool, or that they'll recognise comparing to the new sets. So why is there any need to go back to them? And I think that's kind of one of the main things, actually, is that Magic doesn't really have any life going into it for the next 25 years. It really missed an opportunity over COVID, I think, to try and introduce new players, new kids and all that sort of stuff. I don't think Transformers is going to cut it. I don't think even Marvel's going to cut it. I don't think any of these sort of flavours that they're going to put on the sets is really going to cut it for Magic. It's very old. It's very uninspired. It uses 80s kind of magic, 80s like artwork, which is very kind of it's just old now. People aren't interested in 80s style, grim, dark fantasy artwork anymore. A lot of the kids these days are looking at animes, they're looking at Pokemons, they're looking at, cartoons and that sort of stuff. And those are the sorts of art styles that I think people are being gravitated towards. Especially when you see a lot of these fan projects that get, that come up. There's a lot of Pokemon fan projects out there. Loads of like anime sort of art style projects and all that sort of stuff. Again, zero for Magic. But yeah, a lot of people play the game, and with Pokemon, it's not as important. There's not as many people playing the game. It's more about collectability. People just want to get that card that they wanted, so they'll be more inclined to open up more product. If Magic was to do like a collection box, a Firebolt V collection box with a Firebolt spell in it, and 3 packs, and it's in a box like this for 20 quid, would Magic fans buy it? I'm not entirely sure that they would. I don't even think the older Pokemon collectors tend to buy these collection boxes, that are like 20 quid. Those are sort of more aimed at the kids, and that's proof in itself that that there are kids buying it. There's more kids coming through the ranks. More kids are going to start growing up and getting into Pokemon and bringing their kids into Pokemon eventually when it gets older. But yeah, old Magic is just nostalgia. There isn't really any kind of value outside of that, and in my opinion, within the next 20, 30 years, as my generation starts to get old and we die, I don't actually see Magic growing. I see it start to fall off. And that's kind of a shame, but it is what it is. It's a very outdated game from like the 80s style and a 90s card game. And that's just kind of the way it is. Now, one of the main things that Pokemon have been able to do is increase the collectability within their booster boxes. Now, over COVID, there was a huge, massive spike in printing for all of these cards. And I think a lot of people were kind of worried, like, well, not worried, but a lot of people kind of saying, these booster boxes have been printed to oblivion. The cards have all been printed to oblivion. There's going to be no value in this stuff in the future. And I think Pokemon sort of managed it really well. Instead of just increasing the print run and putting more product out there, what did they do? They put a new rarity tier in there. And once Battle Styles came out, that was at like the real beginning of the hype of Pokemon. If you remember, I think that was like 21, something like that, 2021. But if you think back to then, they put alternate arts in there that were really hard to get. So it means that even though the print run increased, the chase cards themselves became just as hard to get as they were before. So your Urshifu, the Emporion, and they increased the rarity of those cards into the next sets as we got into Chin and Rain, Evolving Skies, obviously. And then Lost Origin, they brought out the Trainer Gallery as well, another rarity tier that increased the number of cards to pull, the difficulty of cards to pull as well. And I think as a result, a lot of people still bought more boxes. They still couldn't get the cards that they wanted to get, which was a big problem with XY, right? When Evolution's got a massive print, because they was expecting that people would want these cards. They were just very, very easy to pull, so no one bought as much product. And yeah, actually, there's a lot of TCGs that have kind of gone down this route as well. I think I'm going to quickly, briefly mention MetaZoo. I think that's one of the reasons why MetaZoo never really took off. It's because nobody cared about the monsters in it. Nobody cared about the characters. Well, there was characters that people cared about, but Mike and the team never wanted to reprint them for some reason. They never wanted to include them in new sets. You started off with Mothman and people liked Squonk from MetaZoo as well, but they never reprinted that card ever, not into a single set. And that was the Magikarp of Pokemon. It was like a cool, really memey sort of monster that people could kind of get behind, laugh at, and it was all just a bit of a joke, right? Like Magikarp. But they just completely missed out on that. And that's what people want. They want familiarity. They don't want 1,000 monsters in year one that they're all going to have to learn and try and figure out who they care about and who they don't. And then when box 2 comes out, you've got another 500 monsters that are all completely different from the first set. And then the third set comes out and you've got another 500 monsters that are all completely different from all of those. And it just didn't make sense. By the time we got to native, you had a whole load of characters in that legendary slot, or whatever they called it, in the rare slot, that no one cared about. No one cared about the Aokakwaka twins, or whatever they were called. No one cared about any of these characters. People wanted to see more Frogman, they wanted to see more Mothman, they wanted to see more Wendigo, and they just didn't. And I think that's one of the reasons why MetaZoo failed. But this is why Pokemon's such a powerhouse, guys. They know what people want. They know that people want to collect specific types of Pokemon. That's why they focus their sets around a Pokemon. Prismatic Evolutions focused around Eevee, Obsidian Flames focused around Charizard, Evolving Skies again based around Eevee, Chilling Rain based around the legendary birds. You got Snorlax in there, Calyrex, amazing cards that people love. You got the Blaziken as well. And that just shows that people want what they want. They don't want all this new stuff. People don't like change. They like to see, oh look, there's a Charizard in this set. That's what I'm going to be going for. They don't want to be guessing what the chase card is going to be, or what they want to be going for, because they might not even want it themselves. But anyway, that's all I got. I thought we'd talk about that for a little while, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Leave us a like if you did. Let us know in the comments what you think. Am I talking rubbish again? Or do you think this is the reason why Pokemon is a powerhouse? Why do you collect Pokemon? Is it because you only care about value? Or do you care about, I want to collect Evolutions, I want to collect Charizards, I want to collect Pikachus, I want to collect Dunsparce? What is the reason you collect it? What is the reason you get into it? Do you buy every single set? And I don't, I don't get into every set. I'm a very specific collector myself. I only collect certain types of Pokemon. I need to collect certain types of art styles as well. So yeah, very, very specific. Most of the cards that I've opened from Prismatic Evolution, actually all of them are going to be sold because none of them fit my collection. Is what it is. But yeah, let us know in the comments, guys. Leave us a like, subscribe if you're new here, and come back on the next one.